Here's why I think you should try a mullet setup on your full 29er bike. Okay guys, let me give you a little context to this story. My bike is a 2023 Revel Rail 29. It's a full 29er. The bike came with a 160mm fork up front, which I later swapped to a 170mm. On the 2024 model, Revel just slapped on a 170mm fork to the front of the bike. So me assuming the 170mm travel will actually be an advantage to me, I swapped it out. This is where my interest peaked with how a mullet setup would affect my bike. After changing out the fork, my concerns being the type of person that goes down the rabbit hole and doing a lot of research, the first thing that I thought is that my bike would lose the climbing ability after changing to the 170mm fork. That was not the case. I noticed absolutely nothing on the climb. The bike felt practically the same, but there was a noticeable difference on the downhill. I'm assuming the higher stack height, I'm not sure if I'm using the correct term, but the handlebar came up higher. I'm assuming the bike slackened a little bit. The head tube angle would have slackened a little, and the bike felt amazing downhill. That little change made a huge difference coming downhill. So that piqued my interest in running a mullet setup. Fast forward a couple months later, I started doing research online to see if anyone had done such a swap on their bike. Mullet setup on a Rail 29, and I couldn't find any information. There was no information online. I actually made a post on the Revel group page on Facebook. Little to no response. No one said they had done such a setup before. Someone commented and said they saw a Rail 27 mulleted, and the guy actually ran 26 wheels to the back. So that didn't really apply to what I was doing. Instead of tripping off myself and going too much into the details and too much of the specs, I said I'll just try it and see how it felt. It was simple as just getting a 27.5 wheel for my bike and just swap it. So that's what I did. Shout out to Mark Gill. He loaned me a rear wheel, one of his spare wheels. So I just slapped it on the bike. Boy oh boy, my initial thoughts were a lot of things would have changed on the bike, especially the climbing aspect of the bike. So fast forward, I probably did this about a month ago, and now we're here, and let me share my full experience and everything that I learned in doing this swap. So first of all, I'm not gonna get techie. The only thing I'm gonna say is that the bottom bracket dropped half of an inch, which is approximately 13 millimeters. Didn't do much of a scientific measurement concerning the slackening of the head tube and the seat post. I use my iPhone and just use the angle finder on that. It's not even measuring to a tenth of a degree, so just using my non-scientific measurement, the head tube slackened by 1 degree and the seat tube slackened by 1 degree. So my initial thoughts. The most unexpected thing that I did not anticipate is how much it will affect the pedaling efficiency, the wattage, the leverage that the bike would have climbing. Since I shortened my cranks on my bike, I went from 170mm to 155mm. I lost that leverage, that cranking leverage on the pedals. So it always felt a bit harder to pedal. Even though I dropped down from a 32 to 30 teeth, the cranking always felt a little harder. So in changing the wheel, my brain did not make the connection that going from a 29-inch to a 27.5 rear tire would make a difference in the pedaling efficiency of the bike. Yes, the cadence is higher, but the effort is lower. The bike feels easier to pedal, especially when we're climbing up. Most of our local trails here, we have to climb on the road or paved, smooth, nice road, and then you reach up into the trail, and most of the times it's hiker bike. So most of our pedaling is not techy and it's on smooth surfaces. So that being said, pedaling the bike up actually felt so much easier for me. My little weak legs were having a awesome time just pedaling and cranking up, going up our trails. So that was the least expected thing. I did not anticipate that at all. So that's the first pro to the mullet setup on my bike. So let's move on to pedaling up techie sections. How did the bike feel? Within the first 15 minutes of riding the bike, I would say that I got spoiled with my short cranks and high bottom bracket. If you're familiar with Revel's suspension kinematics, it's actually really great at climbing. The bottom bracket clearance is actually really good. So that being said, with me putting a 155mm crank on my bike, I actually got spoilt with paying absolutely no mind to pedaling through techie sections. I would just crank away and I would have zero pedal strike. Shout out to 5Dev. That being said, with the bottom bracket dropping down by approximately 13 millimeters or half inch. So basically the bike went back to the OEM spec with the 170mm crank being about 15 millimeters longer than the 155. What's the maths there, boy? 170 minus 155.
What's 9 plus 10?
21.
You stupid.
Quick maths. So it's actually 15 millimeters. The cranks are actually 15 millimeters shorter than the OEM spec. The bottom bracket only dropped by around 13 millimeters. So I was back to square one. So technically it affected me in no way if you're looking at it from a technical aspect from OEM spec. Pedaling through the techie sections, it was just a very brief period of adjusting. It faded away in the background and it was just second nature to pedal and time your pedaling. I did notice that I shift my weight slightly forward on the seat, on the saddle, while pedaling up through techie steep sections. The bike still climbed all the sections that I am accustomed climbing. The bike climbed as usual. Just a slight weight shift on the saddle and that's it. So let's get to the fun part. Coming down the mountains. You usually hear people talk about a mullet setup in the sense of being playful. So I'll touch base on the playfulness of the bike, but the most noticeable thing was the lean over ability of the bike. The bike just leans so much easier. Me being short at just under 5'5", leaning the bike over was like super duper easy. It was a number of things. The butt to back tire clearance increased. In that, I had more space to move around on the bike. I could actually drop my saddle down lower because that's one of the issues on my small frame that I had, that my saddle would come into contact with my back tire on full compression if the dropper post was inserted into the frame fully. So that's one hurdle that I overcame that really had a positive impact. That clearance over the back tire was just awesome. Because if you guys know, cornering is all about movement on the bike. Being able to lean the bike and put your center of gravity, your center of mass over the side knobs of the tire is going to help you grip more into the corners and it's going to give you more cornering traction. So that was a big plus for the Mullet setup. So something else that I noticed is that the bike was more stable coming down the steep, fast sections. I just summed it up to the lower center of gravity, dropping down the bottom bracket by approximately 13 millimeters, lowered the center of gravity of the bike. That being said, the bike was noticeably more stable. The bike would get up to speed and it would feel more stable. Me being lower in the bike add my stability, so I was actually sitting more stable in the bike, standing more stable in the bike also. I'm assuming the slackening of the fork as well would have contributed to the downhill ability of the bike. Right, so let's get to the playful aspect. This is what you hear most people speak about when it comes to a Mullet setup. Business in front and party at the back. It's no lie, it's really fun to ride a Mullet setup. The bike actually feels really alive in the rear, maneuvers easily. You could control the bike way easier, so you could actually do a lot more crazy stuff. You could change your riding style to a little more loose, a little more reckless, and the bike actually has way more control. What I notice in some of the steep sections as well, it's easier to hold the back of the bike into whatever position you want it in. So if you want to turn the back a little bit to slow down your bike, or if you want to straighten it up, if you feel like your back is going to wash out, it's actually easier to control. So in being more playful, there was also an added bonus of control of the rear of the bike, which was a big plus for me. Being a smaller, weaker rider, it actually gave me the confidence to actually come down steep sections faster and being more in control. So right guys, just to wrap it up, I would 100% recommend you try this on your bike. I'm not sure how it will affect your warranty and all those stuff, so you could speak to your manufacturer and find out. Some bikes actually come with a flip chip, so you could actually change your geometry. So if your bike has that, kudos to you. You already have a big advantage on your head of the curb. Would I do this again? 100%. I can't imagine going back to a full 29'er setup on my bike, especially this frame. I'm not sure if Revel would see this video, but I noticed that Revel in their new line of bikes have Mullet setups now. So I guess Revel got up to the times and they noticed the huge advantages that riders could have with running a Mullet setup. So I recommend you guys try this. Check with your manufacturer first. Don't void your warranty on your bike. We know mountain bikes are really expensive. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you out on the trails. Peace.